Cindy doing her wonderful prefect speech.
This?
There you go.
Okay. So, guess what this is? This is what happens when you try to put 130,000 words on paper. And I'm sure many of you have been told that this is what you should do with your life. This. To make the most out of everything. To always strive for perfection. And to try to be the best all the time. Trust me, I'm no stranger to this mentality. Being Asian, being the model minority, I was born from the culture that sometimes sees perfection as the only option. I mean, we all know the Asian grading scale. A's for average, B for bad, and C's for well. Who actually gets below B? But all jokes aside, this idea was ingrained so deeply in me that if you've known me for a while, you know that I'm a huge overachiever. I tried to get full marks for every assignment, win the first place for every contest, and produce the best act for every show. In fact, my advisor had once told me that I'm the most obsessive person he has ever met. Thank you, Mr. G. So one day in grade 9, right after report cards came out, Fernanda went up to me and asked, "Hey Cindy, guess what?" "What, did you beat me?" "Well, what's your average?" 94.6. "Oh my gosh, I got 96, it's higher than yours." Now, I was later told that the look on my face was priceless. I said, "Congratulations," and stormed out of the room to have a mental breakdown. And it turned out that Fernanda did the calculations wrong, so I got to keep my precious first place after all. Now, that was just one of the many examples of my perfectionism, which, although less academically orientated, is still very much present today. I'm sure there are countless others like me, although maybe in a less nerdy fashion. How many of you have tortured yourself for a body like an Instagram model's? Or held a grudge against your teammate because you should have been chosen as the MVP? Or envied other couples because your relationship isn't as smooth as theirs seem? Well, if these obsessions go out of hand, there are many negative consequences. For me, it's a major source of anxiety, which in turn makes me mess up even more. What's worse, my insane expectations often take away my capacity to be grateful. But there's more than that. It also leads to the need for absolute control. Like, try to regulate your breathing, for example. It's supposed to feel relaxing, but what really happens is, now that you're aware of it, you can't stop thinking about it and it starts to feel laboring. And when this urge of control extends beyond oneself, there's a bigger issue. Often, being perfect means being the best, which can sometimes mean stepping over others. You can even argue that it's the same thing that causes conflicts and arm races and even wars. And what happens when the reality falls short of our dream? Well, a lot of expectations have surely been broken in the crazy year of 2020. For me, as a new prefect, I feel that I didn't exactly have an ideal start. See, the word prefect is 2 letters from perfect, and that's the way I thought it's supposed to be. Yet, I found I'm not as assertive or sociable as I expected myself to be. And frankly, there are even times when I have no idea what I'm doing. In my head, I have this image of me going above and beyond, while in reality, I was sometimes struggling to do the bare minimum. And when we look at the bigger picture, I mean, the world didn't plan for a total shutdown. Countless families lost their loved ones out of the blue. People all around the world are disappointed with their government. The worker was anticipating losing their job, and well, the class of 2020 didn't even get to say a proper farewell. So how do we cope with this? Is persisting in our unrealistic expectations really the answer? And what's the point of all this hassle anyway? What even is perfection? It might seem simple enough with things like grades or salary, you can put a number to them. But even if you have straight A+, or if you're the richest person in the world, then what? Are you going to be universally likable or entirely happy? And when perfection can be quantized, it's usually social norms that dictate its criteria. For example, in Asia, having pale skin is the beauty standard, But in America, people line up for tanning beds or dye themselves orange in the case of President Trump. So there's no way to be perfect in everyone's eyes, and that in itself is a form of imperfection. How then do you reach a state that can't even be defined? That's like asking for the value of infinity. So unless you're God, if you're religious, or perhaps an AI if you're not, you will never be free of all flaws. And that's more than okay. Perfection is not our mission, while imperfection is our destiny. And not only that, it's what makes us human. Now, I played piano for 10 years, but for the first 7, I hated it. All I played was classical pieces. I was flawlessly reproducing something that has already been reproduced a million times. But when I came here, we were playing jazz in music class, and in jazz, there are essentially no wrong notes. At first, I was shocked at the idea, but gradually, I began to embrace it. I started to create things that are truly my own, and that would never have happened if I don't allow myself the room for mistakes. My mom used to tell me, don't always make a circle round. And this is what I want to leave with you today. Try your best to get close to perfection, but not when it loses its meaning. Not because society tells you to, not at the cost of your well-being, and not when it does more harm than good. Write poetry on your unique page, because although I did use up this page perfectly, I actually wasted a sheet of paper printing meaningless gibberish. So yes, the dream of perfection is tempting indeed. Sometimes, it's better to be human. All right, thank you, have a nice day.